Hey design enthusiasts! Welcome to Next in Line Design, a podcast by the World Design Organization's Young Designers Circle. We're all about embracing a new mindset in design, one that's bold, innovative, and impactful. We're here to connect with the next wave of design talent and explore how you can use your creativity to make a real impact. Get ready for fresh ideas and inspiration from young designers around the world who are reshaping the industry. We're here to spark conversations, inspire change, and explore new ideas in design. But remember, these are just our perspectives on one big, evolving field. Please note that the opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official views of the World Design Organization or its affiliates. Let's dive in and see what's next in line.
Hi everyone, my name is José Tomas Marchant. I'm a Chilean designer. I'm a member of the Young Designers Circle of the World Design Organization. And as part of the team, I have to say that we are very excited to be kicking off this first episode of Next in Line Design, our podcast. Today we will talk about design for women health with the founders of Palpa, a device that seeks to contribute to the cancer environment in the women's ecosystem, and also to the founder of Alba, a device that seeks to help blind people that menstruate to get more independence and privacy. So we are very, very, very happy to be here, and we will have our guests the opportunity to introduce themselves. So let's go into that. Hello, hi Deepika, hi Josefa. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Well, thank you, Jose, for the invitation. My name is Josefa. I'm 28 years old from Chile, and right now I'm the founder and leader of Palpa, a project that started out while I was studying design in Chile. So if you want, I can tell you more about the project itself, or maybe Deepika can present herself. Okay, great. Well, Palpa is a company focused on raising awareness and changing women's health habits through education and products. It all started 4 years ago with the creation of the Palpa device, which came out of my university thesis, like my final project to go out of university. If you want, you can show the pictures, Jose, so I can explain better.
Yeah, we're already seeing it. Yeah, it's very nice.
Great. The product, so I can tell you more about how the product works. It is a shower sponge with a tumor inside, the simulation of a tumor. And it was designed to make breast self-exam a part of the daily life. So you fill the sponge with shower gel, the one you have in your house, and while you feel the lamp inside, the soap is released through a very soft sponge, so you can soften your skin and help you easily perform this exam in your own body. It is the only product in the world that it is domestic, and also it educates you of how does an anomaly feels like. So because of that, we were granted with an invention patent. And our main goal is to reach women under the 40s, because they're usually the ones who don't have mammograms because of their age and the density of their breast. And because of this, the idea is to build habits and awareness since a younger age, so they can detect any changes and look out for this in their own bodies, and look out for help also from the doctors as soon as possible. And finally, to the date, we've reached over 100,000 women in Chile and Spain with the product. We've worked with more than 250 companies, governments also, and organizations. And which is the most rewarding part, I think, is that 15 people have detected a tumor thanks to Palpa. So yeah, very excited to tell you more about this and my perspective from the design world.
That's super fine. I would very like to hear about Deepika and Alba and start talking about it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast. Really excited to share my journey. I'm Deepika. I'm a user centered design engineer and strategist, and I'm originally from India, currently living in Boston, in the United States, for the past 2 years. My work primarily focuses on bridging various unmet needs in healthcare and with a specific like focus on women's health. I recently graduated from Harvard with a master's in design engineering this year. And prior to that, I did my undergrad in industrial design and was a co founder of a healthcare innovation startup for a couple of years where we were developing products to tackle COVID 19. Um, so, over the course of my master's at Harvard, one of my studio projects was actually Alba, and Alba is a tactile period detection wipe for visually impaired menstruating individuals to know when they've started their period. Um, a friend of mine, Shravya, actually told me about this problem. She is a blind person in India, and actually, she is one of my teammates in this project, and we work very closely together. Um, so she told me about the challenges she and her friends face during menstruation as a blind person, right? So one of the things I learned was that as sighted individuals, we rely heavily on visual cues to know when we've started our period. But if you're blind, you might have to rely on other senses or ask someone else to actually check and verify. And this is a complete loss of privacy and autonomy, and hence we sort of took this challenge, spoke to over 20 visually impaired and blind individuals in India through a grant. And we conducted focus group discussions to really understand what their needs were around menstruation. And once we sort of identified this particular need, we worked in the lab, sort of worked with different materials, like explored color sensors, explored pH, various different parts, and then finally found a biomaterial that actually coagulates blood and doesn't let it seep through the fabric. And we basically coated the fabric with this biomaterial, and it sort of ensures that um, if it's not blood, then the fluid sort of seeps through. It could be vaginal discharge, it could be urine that seeps through the fabric, and it sort of hardens a layer at the bottom, giving them a tactile feedback. So Alba is essentially designed to be like a wipe or a toilet paper that they can just sort of dab at their vaginal region and wait for a few seconds to know if they've started their period. um, and this is then sort of translated to a tactile feedback. um, and yeah, so that's how it works. We are still in the early stages of like prototyping, and we have created like a proof of concept. We're working with more materials to really like ensure that it sort of validates the need and also matches all the um, sort of FDA regulations as well. And yeah, so we're currently in the early stages, but this product sort of has a potential to impact over 86 million blind and visually impaired women across the world. Um, so yeah, this is a project that's very close to my heart, and yeah, excited to share more.
This is very interesting. I think both are great projects. I would very want to know from the very stage, the very base, um, from your career, there were crucial spaces or stage that were very important for the creation of these projects. So
Sure.
please feel
Uh,
free to just
Deepika, do you want to
contribute.
start?
Yeah, sure, I can go ahead.
Yeah,
Um,
go.
so I would say that especially when you're designing at the intersection of health and accessibility, it's super important to make sure that you have the voices on the table. Sort of as a designer, like we don't have the lived experience, not all the time. So it's very important to sort of work with the users. So I really believe in the power of co-design. So even throughout Alba, we ensured that we were working very closely with blind women, sort of took their feedback for every design decision that we made along the way, like not just involving them in the first stage with the user interviews, but like for every design decision, even when we were trying to decide what technology we could use to distinguish between blood and other bodily fluids. Um, we created prototypes for all of these various technologies, but we also had these conversations with women to sort of um, really ensure that they would be comfortable using a particular technology, right? For example, like given abortion laws in certain countries, like it can be challenging for women to feel comfortable like putting their data on the internet, which is why we sort of wanted to make sure that our product was completely disconnected from any kind of like data storage. Um, so that, for example, was a very critical decision that we made through our design process, because initially we were actually going forward with a color sensor sort of approach. But firstly, women were not comfortable using any sort of sensor near a private region. And secondly, given the state of abortion laws, we wanted to be very mindful of that as well um, in our design process.
Yeah, that's super. What about you, Josefa? I think, and we know that the Palpa was developed while you were a design student. So, which stage of the career was super crucial?
Yeah, I totally agree with Deepika, like designing with the user. I was a potential user of this, so I was very involved in the problem. But I think the fact that my studies were focused on project designs more than like only a product or only, I don't know, graphic design. It wasn't just about that, like graphic or industrial. Everything behind the project needed to have a purpose behind, or a problem behind. So there are definitely things you don't understand why while you are studying at the time, but later on you realize it's about having this holistic view of the project. So maybe you won't understand why I had courses like marketing and economics, but that's because 70% of design graduates in Chile end up starting their own business. So the whole package of having like this holistic view in general terms of the design helped me develop this project, because I had to develop the brand, the product, the whole company behind it. So I think it is a very transversal career,
That's super.
and that helped me a lot to design Palpa.
And now, as professional, and maybe you're still students. For example, I'm a still student. So, what motivate you about being designers, and why this motivate you so much?
Well, I can continue if you want.
Please, please.
Go for it.
I always was leaning toward business related studies. Like I loved this commercial view of the things. But until my final years of high school, when I realized how much I loved solving problems and finding simple solutions to complex issues. So I think that's what pushed me to study design, like having learning more about this capability of solving things or looking deeper some problems around me.
And similarly, I think I've always really enjoyed like solving problems and really understanding needs. And I mean, as I studied design more and more, like I understood so much more, right, about design. And what really motivates me is the potential of impact that you can have through design interventions, right? It could be a small change or a big change. It could be a simple solution or a complex solution, but like keeping the user at the center and also the other stakeholders, like really using that systems thinking approach can create like a huge impact. Um, as a young girl, I think what drew me to design was the fact that I really enjoyed like making things, building things all the time at home. And that's something that drives me today as well. I love making things with my hand and prototyping.
I think that's super cool. I think all designers share the same. In this field of background, has anything surprised about design specifically for women health? There's any big insight of working with this specific team that you want to share?
Yeah, absolutely. I was like blown away by how little I actually knew about women's health, myself being a woman. So there are so many things about your period or menopause, breastfeeding, that I just assumed were normal, like things um, that were completely you have to accept, but it shouldn't be like that. A lot of these things have different treatments or ways to manage them, but we just accept them just the way they are. So I have loved learning about it because it changed the way I relate with my own body as a woman. It's been such an eye opener, and that's what drives me to share this same knowledge and impact to other women, because it really helps them in their health and also their lives.
Yeah, similarly, Josefa, I think I've had a very similar experience like working in this space. I think it's also like made me super aware of how the world is actually quite skewed towards men and their needs. And it's been designed poorly in general for women. Like, um, if you look at the speculum, for example, it's a tool that is used in the OBGYN space, right, to examine the vaginal region. It's a very clunky tool, right? And it's so clunky and it just makes the user uncomfortable and it shouldn't be used. Um, I mean, it should be designed better. I think there's like similar to that, there are so many other areas like Josefa mentioned, sort of ripe for opportunities for designers to like work on. Yeah.
Yeah, I think both of these circumstances are super crucial to design. And as we understand the design process, that's something that we need to do. And we need to check that everything is working because it's a system. Of course, understanding the problems of the user, it's the crucial one, especially when you are kinda considered also a user of your product. So it's very interesting this kind of way, especially in this theme. What are the tangible or intangible benefits of both of your projects?
Deepika, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So the tangible benefit is, of course, like, empowering visually impaired and blind individuals to know as and when they really want to check their period, they feel something uncomfortable, they want to check, to be able to do that independently, autonomously. I think that's the tangible impact that we have. Intangible impacts, I would say, like sort of increasing the conversation around menstruation, menstrual health, and making that conversation also accessible to people with disabilities, right, is super important, and that is something that we hope to also focus on through Alba, like apart from the product, also ensure that we make um, menstruation health and reproductive health information more accessible to our users. And I think like beyond just being able to detect your period, it can actually have a lot of impact on your um, sexual health, right? And decisions that you make along those lines as well. Like knowing your period is super important for a lot of decisions. So, yeah, I think those would be like the major impact that we would have, tangible and intangible.
Yeah, great. Um, I totally agree with Deepika in terms of indirect impact. I think Palpa also has a huge impact because we are contributing to this culture change in the general terms of the view of breast cancer, because we are trying to give this information to women when they are out of the age of risk. So we're trying to create more awareness at that age. We are breaking down some myths and taboos also, starting important conversations that weren't happening before, including also men to this conversation because they also can have breast cancer. And well, directly, we are helping women to adopt self-care habits, and of course saving some lives by detecting breast cancer early. And on a personal level, it's very fulfilling to feel that I'm making even a small difference in society, or a small difference in how women relate with their body, and maybe how they are able to detect changes during time because they get to know better their own bodies.
I can be more close to your definition. I think it's very good, and it showcases that design has this importance, that it's connected to the social relationship and everything. The point of design is also a social skill, so we need to connect the impacts and the tangible things that we do. So it's very nice because even in this thematic, we can create a space to break the barriers that the society have already bringing us. So it's very important. I would like to move a little bit closer the innovation part of the projects and also the innovation of the design. So considering the interaction between design and our thematic of designing for women health, what are the advantages of applying these design methodologies of the World Challenge, for example, the SDGs?
Mm, well, I think design really changes the way you approach any situation in life. Being able to understand a user and solve for them, and with them, and also solving with them the problem, that makes a huge difference, especially when tackling something as important as health innovation. Like, you really need to understand the user, and uh, that's why this year, this last couple of years, I don't know, the last 2 decades have been so important for women's health, because finally women are involucrating more in these health problems, and try to solve them, because they are the ones that are suffering also. So doctors are out now, they're saving lives, but they might not have the time to think about how to improve certain techniques or solve specific health problems. So I think designers and design strategies help you see the issue beyond your own expertise or field, and everything around us has been created or designed by someone. So it's fascinating to be part of that, and I think that it really changes the way you see problems around you, applying these design methodologies.
Yeah, I echo everything Josefa said. And also, I just want to add that, yeah, like we spoke earlier, like also understanding the value that experts bring in the process. As designers, we really are generalists, right? So we understand the value of like keeping everyone at the decision making process. And I think the SDGs sort of help you align on what your North Star is, and what you're actually working towards. So it's, as a designer working, like looking at the UN SDGs, I think it sort of like helps you really understand what is that bigger goal that you're striving for. And I think also as designers, we bring in this out of the box thinking approach as well, right? There are certain ideation methods that help you sort of think out of the box, and sort of go beyond what is like the obvious. And we also bring in this approach of like prototyping quickly and testing it out, and understanding the value of like quickly testing solutions and seeing what works, what doesn't work, and then being open to like feedback and iterating on them again. I think, yeah, these are uh, like a few other things I wanted to add to what Josefa already mentioned.
That's great. Yeah. If we think in design and if we try to understand the value of connecting design with the everyday problems, we can understand that it is really possible to generate change because design acts like the catalyst and the connection between all the actors, all the stakeholders in the system. So it's very nice to have you this talking about this. Yeah, it's very crucial for our designers to understand that there's past and there's a future between us. So we need to focus on what I have already done, what is the people doing, and also how we are going to reach the next photo that we want to reach. So, for example, you are here showing us your project, showing us your work. It's very nice to have you here because you are also part of the changing. You are part of the roles that we want to introduce, and this is the real focus of this podcast. At the end, is to showcase young designers that are giving positive impact and changing the things. Um, and considering a little bit more the user interaction of your projects, um, there's any story that you would like to share that demonstrate this kind of impact of design intervention in the people life, for example?
Sure, I'd love to share three stories. The first one, there was a man who thought, who wanted to bring Palpa as a gift for his wife, but realized he had a lamp similar to the one in the product. So it helped him detect his own breast cancer early. So yeah, that was a very impactful story because breast cancer in men is very and is not common at all. Only 1% of the cases are in men, so it was a huge case. Also, Elisa, she received Palpas as a gift, and at her 28, she was 28 years old. Thanks to it, she detected her triple negative breast cancer early, which is the most aggressive type of breast cancer. So it was a huge impact in her life because she had never done breast self exams before. And because of this one, she detected her tumor a little bit earlier than if not. And finally, Ariela, whose partner in this case brought her the product after attending to one of our workshops at his own workplace, like for breast cancer awareness month. So he received the product and then gave it to her, but also he was the one that found her breast cancer, because if you didn't know, but most of the cases that like someone detects a lump, it is because of the partner more than itself. So it was a very interesting case also because she was only 30 years old. Yeah, and of course, thousands of women who had wrote us that thanks to Palpa, they are now more aware and doing their breast exams and are more in tune with their bodies. Thank you to all of them.
That's very, very inspiring, Josefa. So inspiring to see the impact that you've been able to create. In my case, I would say in our case, for Alba, like we're still in the early stage, but sort of, I think even when we interacted with our users, they were um, able to share like how it could create impact, like especially as young teenagers. They as young teenagers, you don't want to be like compromising your privacy or asking someone else if you've started your period. So especially in that phase, like we've learned that Alba could really help sort of empower these young girls to know when they've started their period. So we basically showed our users a look and feel of our product and gave them uh, this look and feel product, not the working prototype, since that still needs to be validated further. And this is the sort of feedback we got.
Great. I think it's very
Great
interesting to
story.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sadly, we are reaching our limit. And of course, before we say goodbye, we want to give our guests the space to give advice or invite the designers who are listening to us to take action. So please feel free to give an invitation, to give an advice, or to motivate the people that are here this podcast to take the actions and change the world.
Yeah, I think like often, sorry.
No, go ahead, Deepika.
Yeah. Often as designers, we might sort of feel that, oh, like we might not have this lived experience. So, can we really be the right people who can design for this solution? Right. But don't let that stop you, because you can always like co design with your users and other stakeholders in the process. You can always learn anything as well. Like, I really believe in that. You can learn from your peers, like there are so many online resources as well. So never stop that from pursuing like important challenges. And I think also um, exploring Alba made me realize how many other challenges are there within the intersection of like women's health and accessibility. And I would really urge other designers to explore other unmet needs within the space, because there's a lot that we can do here as designers.
Yeah, and adding to Deepika, only one thing, maybe that don't believe that when you are studying design, you can like they're all projects just to passing the exam. It really changed my whole life. I would say, like taking one project very serious during university. Now is my company, and it's in 2 countries, and it has been an amazing journey. So it really started all in classes, and like I think that changes a little bit the mind of a student, because it really can impact the work you are doing now. It can really impact thousands and maybe millions of people around you.
Thank you much for these comments. I want to really globalize that we truly believe that design can generate the change, and that the potential of the changing, of the breaking the barriers is in our hands. So even if we are designers, we have a most important role to play, because we have to take the action for our needs. So we really hope that you love meeting, first of all, Deepika, and second, Josefa. So I have to thank both of you from the point of view of the World Design Organization, and also the Young Designer Circle team doing this project. And Next in Line Design is created for and by young designers. So we really hope that you enjoy turning in and hearing from who is next in line in the world of design. We got some really exciting topics coming up, and some stories that we can't wait to share with you. But in the meantime, we can connect. So try to connect with us. I will not be in the next episode, because we have a very nice, interesting role of rotating cost. So the next cost is going to be a different one. And feel free to reach out to say hey, to share your history, or give you some inspiration for the conversation that we want to have in this space. So thank you soon. Hope everything went well and you really enjoyed this conversation that we have.